Innovation is something that is often misunderstood. We think about these giant product breakthroughs. But in that context, perhaps it doesn't apply to each of us as we run our hotels. What I'm going to do today is challenge that assumption and really focus on what we can do specifically to innovate in the context of our daily lives. So today what we're going to talk about are some fresh ideas, fresh approaches to creativity, transformation, and ultimately seizing our full potential. Quick question for you. Who do you think was the world's largest retailer in 1950? Sears, good guess. Montgomery Ward, also excellent guess. Woolworths, Walmart. Well, Spiegel, okay, very good guesses, but actually, A&P. Remember A&P, right? So in 1950, 16,000 retail stores. Over the last decade, they tripled their growth, several $billion in revenue. And at that time, even though grocery was a very fragmented marketplace, they had a 15% market share in the US. So what happened? Well, they became intoxicated by their own success. They believed they cracked the code and could print success forever. Yet what we know is that success is a temporary state that happens in the context of many external factors. And those factors today are changing at a rate like none other in history. So they kept doing things the same way, while other competitors came in and did it a new way. They failed to adapt, they failed to create, and they simply failed. Bankruptcy in 2013. By the way, that same 15% market share today would be worth nearly $600 billion. I could put dozens of other examples up here. Companies like Blockbuster, or Kodak, or Oldsmobile, or Pan Am Airlines that had a leadership position, but squandered it. For us in the music biz, we have a real opportunity in these changing times to prioritize innovation, to prioritize the possibilities instead of simply favoring the past. And in doing so, we could unlock incredible opportunity. This is a picture of my company. I started it in 1999. We sold it in 2012 to a large private equity fund. The company was called ePrize. So we did online digital promotions for major brands around the world. Ended up with about 500 employees worldwide, and we worked with 74 of the top 100 brands. Now that sounds all groovy, but it wasn't always so smooth sailing. Early on, for example, we had the chance to win some business from a very large company called Conagra Foods. And perhaps you know of them by name, but you'd recognize certainly the brands from their portfolio. Anyway, this huge company decided to consolidate all of their purchases of our kind of work, which was digital promotions, to a single supplier. We made it to the finals. So here's the scenario. 3 companies left standing, my little tech company and 2 other giants in the industry. And all 3 of us desperately wanted this business. Problem is, the lead buyer, the decision maker, he was kind of a jerk. Actually, he was really a jerk. This guy was condescending and arrogant and difficult. I'm sure we've never had a guest like that, right? And furthermore, he was dragging the process out. All of us just wanted closure. Well, I bumped into him and his wife at an industry event. So boy, I'm trying everything I know to wine and dine him, trying to close the deal. Nothing's getting through. He was very standoffish. Next, I see him and his wife again at the airport. It turns out that we were all on the same outbound flight. So what happens next? Can't even make this up. This guy gets an upgrade to first class. He's a frequent traveler. So sure enough, he takes the seat for himself, sends his wife on back to coach. Just for the record, if I did that with my wife, like, game over. That's not happening. Anyway, again, can't even make this up. I also get an upgrade to first class, and sure enough, I get the seat next to him. So I walk on this flight, and I look at that open seat. He's already sitting down, and my mind is racing, saying to myself, this baby's mine. He's going down. He's not getting off this flight until he signs a deal with me. But then I paused. In the same way, I want to encourage you to pause when you're facing a decision. Our instincts can often guide us in a certain direction, but those instincts can be misleading. In those pauses, that is our opportunity to let our imagination shine, to explore the possibilities. Is there an alternate route? Is there an unorthodox path that could yield a better outcome? Here's what I ended up doing. I wish I could say it was calculated. It was just because it was the right thing to do. But I walked on and I said, hey, I have this seat next to you. The guy looks up at me. Cool, we could chat. I said, I'd love that. Problem is, I have a bunch of work to catch up on. And by the way, I noticed your wife is sitting in back. How about we switch seats? So this guy thanked me, but I saw something change in his eyes. Anyway, walk back and I find his wife and coach, and I present her my first class ticket. I said, go sit with your husband. Have a great flight. Well, this woman, she gets like teared up. Thank you so much. I'm so happy. This is such an important thing. I'm so happy to be sitting with my husband. I don't know why. I was half expecting her to say, no, it's cool. You keep the ticket. So we take off, and I don't think much about it until we land. First thing we all do is check our mobile device, and I look down at mine, true story, and I see an email from my office. Josh, Conagra deal signed. Here's what he later told me. He said, I was looking for a tiebreaker. All three companies were solid and technically proficient. But when you exhibited a little humanity, instead of only lusting after the bottom line, he said to me, that's who I wanted to work with. This went on to represent over $30 million in revenue for our little firm in the next couple years. It was a big moment in our evolution. And again, it happened by taking this unorthodox approach that is accessible to us all. So I want to challenge you a bit this morning. No matter what your business card title may say, CEO of your association, vice president of membership, I think all of us need an additional title, an unwritten one, that of disruptor, or business artist, or innovator, or entrepreneur. To me, these are the very skills that are needed to create real value, to create sustainable success for all of those that we serve. You know, think about the world that we're living in today. And even though we've got a little bit of bump in the economy, we're still living in a world of massive transformation. Today, it's dizzying speed, exponential complexity, and ruthless competition. Nearly every industry represented in this room is in the midst of massive upheaval. And what we know for sure is that the rules of the game have fundamentally changed. We can no longer rely on the models of the past and expect to win. Today, we need to bring forth an entirely new approach, largely driven by innovation, by creative thinking. In fact, it's the one thing that can't be outsourced. It's our one source of sustainable competitive advantage. We think of innovation as the giant breakthroughs, inventing the light bulb or the automobile. Yes, those are innovative. But in that context, innovation only applies to a select few. CEOs, billionaires, inventors. But I'd like you to consider the concept of everyday innovation. In other words, little acts that you can do on a daily basis that over time lead to big things. Sure, they may not make the cover of a magazine, but they can drive real results in your business and for our patients. Everyday innovation applies to us all. More often than not, innovation happens as, sure, there's an initial idea, but it's directional and probably deeply flawed. It only works through a series of micro-innovations that follow that initial idea, little adaptations, often through a series of setbacks and mistakes and failures that over time lead to real value. So this myth that we have is that there's an initial idea that is worth everything, and then after that idea, it's just mindless execution. That's not the way it works at all. It's more important how quickly you adapt than the potency of an initial idea. Example, a billboard goes up in Los Angeles. Your move, BMW, the entirely new Audi A4. Now, I believe this was a rhetorical question. Like the whole point of the ad is there's no way BMW could possibly respond to this cool new car. Except, BMW is an innovative company. and they know how to adapt fast. Within only 1 week, in the identical sight line to this billboard, BMW fired back with this. I bet Audi wasn't expecting that. But here's the cool part. Audi is also an innovative company. They also know how to adapt fast. So instead of crying foul or calling in the lawyers, only a couple days later, on the very next billboard over, Audi responds with, "Your pawn is no match for our king." This launches the billboard wars of LA. Both companies volleying back and forth, trying to outdo one another. And in fact, both companies won because they both knew how to adapt fast. If one of them didn't, that truly would have been checkmate. It did get a little weird after a while. It's funny, during this time, no one was talking about Lexus or Mercedes, so they both were able to shut their competitors out of the conversation. In the end, though, Audi did something pretty cool. The last series of ads that ran on billboards weren't created by their agency. They were created by their customers. Audi opened it up on social media, and thousands of ideas flooded in via Twitter and Facebook, which were ideas that they actually used. Now think about this. Imagine engaging your customers so much that they are writing your ads for you. But to me, the cool part about it is it wasn't like they sat in some brain trust meeting and said, "Hey, how can we get our customers to write our ads for us?" They started with an idea that was deeply flawed and it didn't work. I mean, BMW came firing back. But it was their ability to adapt fast and capitalize on the situation that led to a great outcome, again, for both companies. I'm actually a very passionate Detroiter. I'm a third generation. My grandparents, my parents, and I were all born in the city of Detroit. And you could say, well, here's a great case study on what happens when an organization, in this case a city, reinvents or doesn't. Back in the 100 years ago, Detroit was the Silicon Valley of our country. That's where people would come to build their entrepreneurial fortunes. And when we were in this groove of creative exploration and innovation, our city prospered. We were one of the top cities in the country. We were known as the Paris of the Midwest. Then what happened? Then we did a 180. We became complacent. We thought we were untouchable, and we built these stifling bureaucracies and became involved in finger-pointing and protectionism and blame. And as you can predict, what happened? Our city crumbled. People made fun of us for the last 40 years. Of course, all the next line of problems ensued: racial divisiveness and tax dwindling and population loss. But now, you may have heard, what's happening in Detroit is remarkable. We are now in the midst of the greatest transformation, I believe, in American history. And this once battered and broken city is rising from the ashes. The only way that that's happening, it's happening because we're willing to let go of the past. The leaders that are deeply committed to our rebirth are not saying, hey, let's go rebuild the way Detroit was. They're saying, let's rebuild a new Detroit, one of a diversified economy, one that looks very different than the way it was in the past. From a personal standpoint, we decided to invest in tech startups. So we launched a tech venture capital fund in 2010 called Detroit Venture Partners. People thought we were nuts. You can't invest in tech companies in Detroit. All you guys know how to do is bend steel. Go to Silicon Valley. But we took the alternative path, and we did it anyway. And our thinking was that, yeah, we might be able to make some money, but more importantly, we could make a difference. So we decided to use entrepreneurial investing as a pathway to urban revitalization. The thinking was that by backing these passionate entrepreneurs, we could create jobs, urban density, and hope. We could reestablish Detroit as a beacon of innovation and opportunity, diversify the economy, keep our young people in the state after graduation. As I mentioned, people thought we were nuts. But by imagining what could be instead of what was, it ended up working out. This is a building we took over that was vacant for 20 years, invested a ton of money into it to make it like ground zero of entrepreneurship. We wanted to create a home for these tech entrepreneurs. And we started investing. When this building opened in early 2011, there wasn't a single tech company to be found in the city of Detroit. Today, within 1 square block of this building, there are 70 tech companies. Hiring people, hundreds of people busting at the seams, new restaurants opening, new art galleries. So we're a little piece of this. I'm not taking credit at all for the Detroit transformation. But I am saying that progress happens when you're willing to let go of what was. solving complex problems in unorthodox ways with limited resources. Isn't that exactly what we do every day? They could print that on the back of our business cards. And those are the types of approaches and skills needed to win in this fist-fighting economy. Show you a fun example. TNT, you probably know, television network. Well, they wanted to rebrand themselves all around drama, like they're the TV network of drama. Problem is, they didn't have a big budget, so they couldn't approach it in a traditional way. They had to get scrappy. Check it out. So let's just do the math. You want to reach tens of millions of people. Well, you could buy a Super Bowl ad. Entry point is $5 million. Or you could hire some actors and a film crew in some local little town in Europe. This isn't about the 200 people that saw it live that one day. It's about the 40 million people that have since watched this online. 40 million people now know that TNT is all about drama. And it happened by taking this scrappy, creative, entrepreneurial approach. So here's my challenge to you. While these ideas are fresh in your mind, see if you can learn and take one idea in the next 7 days. In other words, look around your hotel. Big and small ideas, doesn't matter. But see if you can discover one single idea for creative disruption. You don't have to fund it next week or try it or execute it. Just think of it. Here's what's likely going to happen. Ideas are contagious. So one idea becomes 5 ideas, becomes 11 ideas. And not only that, this new creative vibe, it starts to spill over to those around you. If you start with a single idea in the next 7 days and fast forward 90 days from now, or you're at this great event next year, you could be enjoying a freight train of progress. The competition has never been stiffer. The stakes have never been higher. The challenges have never been greater. The complexities have never been bolder. But you know what? The opportunities have never been more profound. So let's seize them. Let's use today as the jumping off point. Let's let our imagination and creativity flourish. Now is the time. Now is the time to get curious. Now is the time to crave what's next. Now is the time to defy tradition. Now is the time to get scrappy. Now is the time to adapt fast. And if we can do that with the incredible resources and support of Interstate Wow, we're going to go on to seize the enormous opportunities waiting for us just outside those doors. Thank you so much.